Even after his children had reached adulthood, Mitchum would frequently up sticks and vanish alone into the woods. It was an existence he was used to. Hollywood never erased the hobo. After his infamous drugs arrest in 1948, when everyone thought his career was over, Mitchum told the press, as far as he was concerned, he arrived in LA on a freight train and he would leave the same way. And there he is, Mitchum. Stroll in dusty streets, in lonely towns and hobo beats, in one-night stands and itchy feet, and in that motion sound. A need to move, no need to hide, no limit set upon his mind. He trailed a whistle along the line to see what he could find. Matting the fur of feral dogs, drinking from the fetid bogs which rot between the sleeper logs and rumble out of town. Jump in boxcars, wade with risky life, learning ways of men and mice, and if he asked for anything of another guy, it was simply this: "Hey, Dad, can you give me a light?" and travelled on his way. In 1972, Mitchum appeared on the Michael Parkinson Show and reflected on his hobo life. Glamorous, it wasn't. Hungry, he was.
Knocking at the back door, asking the kind lady if she had a piece of bread, you know. Never offering them all along, just dealing with the kind lady.
This was travel without destination or goal.
Nothing, really, just keep moving. No purpose. No purpose at all, really. I suppose that if I kept walking long enough, I'd fall across something. A warm body or something that's usable. You know.
Still not 16, Mitchum was arrested in Georgia for vagrancy. He spent time on the chain gang before escaping through the swamp and returned home injured yet informed. In 1934, he and younger brother John, known as Jack, headed for California. Yet John was arrested en route. Mitchum wrote to his sister and her husband, surreptitiously slipping in the news under the cover of poetic and musical language. "Dear Nat and Ernie, so we're just lazing along, taking it easy, grabbed the wrong freight out of Birmingham and rode to New Orleans instead of Dallas. So I haven't been to Dallas for my dough. Perhaps Jack has, though. He left me in Lake Chaz, Louisiana. We'll grab a hot shot out of here tonight for El Paso. Write me in El Paso. Love, Bob." Mitchum, the real deal rough and tumble, the hobo, the working-class hero, has served as inspiration to numerous actors, writers, and musicians.
At night we ride to mansions of glory and suicide machines.
New Jersey's finest, one Bruce Springsteen, has written his fair share about roads and running. Was he a fan of Mitchum? Let's ask Jeanette Etheridge, owner of the Tosca Bar in San Francisco, where the ladies' room has become a shrine to Mitchum.
We're looking at the photos of Robert Mitchum in the ladies' room. And like I said, this is the first film he was in. That one is out of the past. What's that one? Is that the one that he was Heaven Knows Mrs. Allison, or isn't that the one with Deborah Carr? And then that one, the last one, is a photo that Annie Leibovitz took.
Men's men in the ladies' room? Whatever next?
Sean Penn was playing pool with Bruce Springsteen back here. And Sean came over to me and he said, "Take Bruce Springsteen into the ladies' room." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Show him the Mitchum pictures. He's a big fan." And I said, "You take him into the bathroom. I'm not going to take him in there." And he said, No, I want you to take him in." So I said, "Bruce, come with me." We went into the bathroom, and when we walked in, there was a woman who was washing her hands in the basin. I didn't pay any attention to her. I just started showing him the pictures, and he was, going on about how great it was that, we had this homage to Mitchum in the ladies' room. And when we left, I thought, this poor woman, nobody is ever going to believe that here she is in a bathroom in a bar and Bruce Springsteen walks in. And all he wanted to do was look at the pictures of Mitchum.
That his shrine should be in a restroom is more than fitting. Mitchum was once asked where his poems could be found. He replied, "On restroom walls across the States. And a ladies' restroom in a bar, well, that's just perfect." Here's Stanley Rubin again.
Mitchum could drink, and I experienced that in the making of River of No Return. He could drink most of a night, but, and I appreciated this, it never seemed to affect him at 7 o'clock the next morning. He was there, he was in makeup, wardrobe, and on the set on time, and he always knew his lines.
Mitchum liked to drink, yet it didn't seem to affect his health until much later in life. And even as a boozer, he kept in great shape. Polly Bergen appeared with Mitchum in Cape Fear. Both she and film critic David Thompson were bowled over.
Mitchum was really physically imposing and kept himself in great shape. Always worked out and was always, really quite gorgeous to look at.
I remember, not that I wanted to kiss him, but when I met him, I thought, how does a woman kiss this man? How do they sort of get their face past the chest close enough to kiss him?
Mitchum had more than his fair share of admirers, and was known to use his poetry to charm the women. One admirer, named Dorothy Spence, complained the women elbowed her out of the way to get to him. She was his childhood sweetheart and wife of 57 years.
Dorothy was everything to him when he was, 15 or 14 years old before he became anything. And he hopped the trains to go out to California to make something of himself. He told her, "Stick with me and you'll be farting through silk." And they stayed together for over 50 years, and she was. So he kept his word. He was able to look in the mirror and did what he said he was going to do.
I can only wonder about the depth of feeling that keeps two people together for so long. Surely Mitchum must have written hundreds of poems for his woman. Here's one.
Love song for Dorothy. With my shamed, sad hope in my telltale eyes, and the fleet fears trapped within my breast, there is no last mercy, there are no last lies, for my sweet dumb dreaming is confessed.
Women loved Mitchum, often in spite of themselves. But then there's nothing new about good girls falling for a bad boy. Mitchum could turn on the charm if he wanted to, but if he didn't, watch out. Novelist Edna O'Brien admitted that what attracted her to Mitchum wasn't necessarily any good for her.
I met an actor once, very briefly, called Robert Mitchum, who indeed is a very attractive man, and he said, "Why don't you comb your hair and look efficient?" And I knew that I liked him a lot.
Although fundamentally a loner, Mitchum also loved an audience and was a great raconteur. He could tell stories which left even the real-life protagonists wondering what happened next.
One time, my wife and I were in a restaurant in Colorado, and a fellow came over with a piece of soiled toilet tissue and threw it right down on top of my steak and said, "Sign that." And I said, "Of course." He picked up my fork and ran it right up through his chin, up into his upper palate, bent it over, said, ripped his pocket out and gave him the tab and said, "Take him to the hospital." There's been a dreadful accident here.
Although acting was always his second choice after writing, Mitchum realized early in his Hollywood career that poetry was not going to clothe the kids or feed the baby. Here's his grandson again.
He was a decent musician. He was a fighter for a while. I think that the reason he ended up going with the acting gig was because it paid better than being a poet. I mean, that's why he kept writing it, and as his success took off, he realized he could make much more money being an actor than a poet, and he could still write his poetry and keep it more of a private thing. But I agree with you. I think he had the talent to become a poet.